The Perseverance drifted through the purple clouds of the Hurian Nebula like a wounded bird. The ship was old. It's very old. Its hull was covered with scratches and dents from decades of space travel. Paint was peeling off in several places. The engines made strange noises that the crew had learned to ignore. To anyone looking at it, the ship seemed ready for the junkyard. Commander Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge and looked out at the swirling gases of the nebula. She was a tall woman with gray streaks in her dark hair and tired eyes that had seen too many years in space. Behind her, the bridge crew worked at their stations. There were only 12 people on the bridge, and the whole ship had just 47 crew members. Most of them were scientists, not soldiers. The Perseverance was a research vessel. At least that was what everyone believed. The ship had been sent to study strange gravity waves in this remote part of space. It was the kind of boring mission that nobody important wanted. The kind of mission given to old ships and forgotten crews. Lieutenant David Park looked up from his scanner. He was young, barely 30, and still believed that space exploration was romantic and exciting. Commander, I'm picking up multiple contacts entering the nebula. Vasquez felt her stomach tighten. How many? 12 large signatures. At least 40 medium ones, and ... He paused, his face going pale. Hundreds of smaller craft. Fighter class. The bridge went silent. Everyone knew what this meant. No friendly fleet was that large. Not out here in the middle of nowhere. Identification? Vasquez asked, though she already knew the answer. Krethfer Empire, Commander. It's a full battle armada. Chief Science Officer Dr. Sarah Chen stood up from her station. Her hands were shaking. What do they want with us? We're just a research ship. Before Vasquez could answer, the communication system crackled to life. A harsh voice filled the bridge, speaking in the guttural language of the Krethfer. The translation software converted it to human speech a moment later. Human vessel. This is Fleet Commander Zorith of the Krethfer Imperial Navy. You are in restricted space. You will surrender all research data regarding the spatial anomalies in this region. You will then submit to inspection. You have 1 hour to comply. Failure to obey will result in your complete destruction. The transmission ended. For a long moment, nobody spoke. The Krethvar were one of the most feared species in the galaxy. They were tall reptilian creatures, covered in dark scales, with teeth designed for tearing flesh. Their empire had conquered dozens of worlds. Their military had never lost a major battle. They viewed humans as weak. Soft creatures who had somehow stumbled into space travel by accident. Dr. Chen was the first to break the silence. We have to give them what they want. We can't fight an armada. That data represents 3 years of work, Lieutenant Park said. If we give it to them, they'll have the key too. Faster than light travel improvements? That could take them decades to develop on their own. Better than being dead, someone muttered from the back of the bridge. Vasquez didn't respond. She was thinking, the Krethver had sent an entire armada for one small research ship. That meant they knew exactly what the Perseverance had discovered. Someone had told them. Someone had betrayed humanity's greatest scientific breakthrough. But that wasn't what occupied her mind. Something else was bothering her. Something she had noticed years ago, but never thought about until now. The Perseverance's power core was too big when she had first taken command of the ship 8 years ago. She had reviewed all the technical specifications. The ship was old, built over 60 years ago during the darkest period of human history. Back then, humanity had been fighting for survival against an enemy that nearly wiped them out. After the war ended, many ships were converted to civilian use. The Perseverance had supposedly been a colony transport before becoming a research vessel. But colony transports didn't need power cores that could supply a ship 3 times their size. Vasquez had filed a report asking about it. The response had been a single word, classified. She had forgotten about it until now. Lieutenant Park, she said slowly, please contact Chief Engineer Okonkwo. Tell her I need to see her in my ready room immediately. And tell her to bring the original ship schematics. Not the current ones. The ones from when this ship was first built. Park looked confused but nodded. Yes, Commander. Dr. Chen stepped closer, lowering her voice. Alina, what are you thinking? We can't fight them. We don't even have weapons. Vasquez looked at her old friend. They had served together for 15 years. Chen had been with her through everything. Sarah, do you trust me? Of course. Then trust me now. Get all non-essential personnel to the interior compartments. Tell them to prepare for unusual maneuvering.
Ow.
Chen's eyes widened. You're not thinking of running? Their ships are 10 times faster than ours. I'm not thinking of running. The look on Vasquez's face made Chen take a step back. In all their years together, she had never seen that expression before. It was the look of someone who had found a weapon they didn't know they had. 10 minutes later, Chief Engineer Amara Okonkwo arrived at the commander's ready room. She was a large woman with powerful arms and grease permanently embedded under her fingernails. She had kept the Perseverance running through situations that should have killed them all. If anyone knew this ship, it was her. You wanted the original schematics? Okonkwo asked, holding up a datapad. Took some digging. These files are ancient. And heavily encrypted? Can you break the encryption? Already did. Took me 3 minutes. Okonkwo smiled. But the smile faded as she saw the Armada displayed on the ready room screen. Commander, please tell me you're not planning to fight those ships. I need you to look at something first. Vasquez took the datapad and scrolled through the files until she found what she was looking for. Tell me what you see. Okonkwo studied the schematic. Her frown deepened. Then her eyes went wide. She grabbed the datapad and zoomed in, scrolling rapidly through page after page of technical drawings. This is impossible, she whispered. This can't be right. This ship. This isn't a colony transport. It never was. What is it? Okonkwo looked up, her face a mixture of fear and something else. Something that might have been excitement, Commander. The Perseverance is a warship. And not just any warship. She turned the datapad around to show Vasquez what she had found. The ship was built to kill fleets. Outside, the Krethvar Armada moved closer. Completely unaware that the prey they had cornered was not prey at all, Okonkwo spread the schematics across the table in the engineering bay. Vasquez stood beside her, along with Lieutenant Park and Dr. Chen. The four of them stared at drawings that had been hidden for 6 decades. The Scourge Wars, Okonkwo said quietly. That's when this ship was built. I was just a child then, but I remember the stories. The Velix nearly destroyed us. Everyone in the room knew the history. 63 years ago, humanity had encountered the Velix, a hive mind species that consumed entire civilizations. They had attacked without warning, without negotiation. In the first year alone, 12 human colonies were wiped out. 3 billion people died. Humanity had faced extinction, and they had responded the only way they knew how. They built weapons. The Perseverance was one of 12 ships in something called Project Sleeper, Okonkwo explained, pointing at the documents. The idea was simple but clever. Build warships that look like civilian vessels. Hide them among the normal traffic. If the Velix ever broke through the main defense lines, these ships would be waiting. A last surprise, a final weapon. Dr. Chen shook her head. But the war ended. We won. Why wasn't the ship converted for real? Because humanity learned something during that war, Vasquez said. We learned that the galaxy is dangerous. We learned that looking weak can get you killed. She traced her finger along the schematic. So they kept the weapons. They just hid them better. Park leaned closer to examine the drawings. What kind of weapons are we talking about? Okonkwo pulled up another page. 3 main systems. First, the resonance cannons. They fire concentrated gravitational waves at a specific frequency. Every material has a resonance frequency. Hit it with the right vibration, and it falls apart. These cannons can be tuned to target specific hull alloys, like the alloys used by the Krethvar. How would they know what alloys the Krethvar use? Chen asked. They didn't. But the targeting system can analyze enemy ships in real time and calculate the right frequency. It takes about 4 seconds. Park whistled softly. What else? The hull plates. Okonkwo knocked on the wall beside her. Everyone thinks this old hull is barely holding together. But these plates are actually advanced heat sinks connected to a plasma conversion system. When energy weapons hit us, the plates absorb the heat and convert it into power for our own weapons. The more they shoot us, the stronger we get. The room was silent as everyone processed this information. A ship that got more powerful when attacked. It seemed impossible. And the third system? Vasquez asked. The engines? They look old and slow, but that's because we've been running them at maybe 5% capacity. At full power, they can create what the documents call a gravity wake. Basically, the ship tears a hole in normal space behind it as it moves. Anything caught in that wake gets crushed by gravitational forces. Vasquez looked at the schematic for a long moment. Then she looked at her. Chief Engineer, can we make it work? These systems haven't been activated in 60 years. Okonkwo was already moving toward her main console. The systems are designed to stay dormant, self-maintaining. According to these specs, they should be ready to go with just a startup sequence. She paused. But I need to be honest, Commander. We've never tested any of this. Nobody has. For all we know, the whole ship could explode the moment we try to power up the weapons. What are the odds? I'd say maybe 15% chance of catastrophic failure. Vasquez considered this. 15% chance of killing themselves. 100% chance of death or capture if they did nothing. Do it. While Okonkwo began the activation process, Vasquez returned to the bridge. The Krethver Armada was now visible on the main screen. 12 massive battlecruisers, each one larger than a small city, 47 destroyer escorts, bristling with weapons, and surrounding them all, clouds of fighter craft moving in patrol patterns. Fleet Commander Zoreth had brought enough firepower to conquer a planet. All for one small research ship. 30 minutes until their deadline, Park reported. Vasquez sat in her command chair. Open a channel to the Armada. The screen flickered, and Zoreth's face appeared. He was an impressive creature, she had to admit. His scales were deep crimson, a sign of royal blood in Krethver society. His yellow eyes held the confidence of someone who had never known defeat. Have you made your decision, human? He asked. Will you surrender peacefully, or must I destroy you? I have a question first, Vasquez said calmly. Why send an entire armada for one research ship? Surely a single destroyer could handle us. Zoreth's lips pulled back in what might have been a smile. We know what you have discovered. The gravity well data. The potential for travel speeds beyond anything currently possible. Such knowledge is too valuable to risk losing. And if we had already transmitted the data to Earth, you haven't. We've been monitoring your communications. You wanted to return home with your prize. Your arrogance will be your downfall. Vasquez nodded slowly. You're right. We haven't transmitted the data. But I'm curious about something else. How did you know what we found? We haven't told anyone. For just a moment, Zorath's expression flickered. That is not your concern. There's a spy. Someone in our government. Someone who sold us out. 25 minutes, human. I suggest you spend them making peace with whatever gods you believe in. The transmission ended. Dr. Chen approached the command chair. He's right about one thing. We can't transmit the data. Not with their ships jamming our long-range communications. I know. Vasquez was staring at the Armada, but her mind was elsewhere. Thinking about the spy. Thinking about how humanity was always being betrayed, always being underestimated, always being pushed around by species who thought they were better. Not today. Her communicator beeped. Okonkwo's voice came through. Commander, the weapon systems are online. All 3 arrays are showing green. The ship is ready. Any problems? The gravity wake generator is running a little hot, but it's within acceptable limits. There's one other thing, though. What? When I activated the weapons, a recorded message started playing. It's from Admiral Victoria Chen. She was the one who designed Project Sleeper. What does it say? There was a pause. Then Okonkwo's voice came back, slightly unsteady. She says, To whoever hears this message, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that we live in a galaxy where ships like this are necessary. But remember what we learned in the Scourge Wars. Remember that humanity survives. Not because we are the strongest. Not because we are the smartest. But because we never give up. And because when we are pushed into a corner, we push back. Give them hell. Vasquez closed her eyes for a moment. Admiral Chen had died 30 years ago, a hero of the war. And now her words were reaching across time, giving Vasquez the strength she needed. Thank you, Amara. Prepare for combat. On the bridge, the crew exchanged looks. Combat? Against an armada? But they had served with Vasquez long enough to trust her judgment. All hands. Vasquez announced over the ship-wide intercom, "This is the commander. In approximately 20 minutes, we will be engaging the Krethver Armada. I know that sounds impossible, but I need you to trust me. This ship is not what it appears to be. We have weapons they don't know about. We have capabilities they cannot imagine. Today, we're going to teach the galaxy a lesson they will never forget. Today, we show them why humanity should never be underestimated." She paused, then added battle stations. The Perseverance began to change. Fleet Commander Zorath stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dominion and watched the human vessel with growing impatience. The deadline had passed 5 minutes ago. The pathetic ship had not surrendered. It had not tried to flee. It simply sat there in the purple clouds of the nebula, doing nothing. Perhaps they are praying, his tactical officer suggested with amusement. Humans are known for their primitive religious beliefs. Zorath's tongue flicked out, tasting the recycled air of his bridge. Something felt wrong. He had conquered 17 worlds. He had destroyed fleets larger than this one. He had learned to trust his instincts. And right now, his instincts were telling him that something was not right. "Scan them again," he ordered. Full spectrum analysis. His sensor officer worked the controls. A moment later, his scales turned pale. "Commander, I'm reading unusual power fluctuations from the human ship. Their reactor output has increased by..." "That can't be correct." "What is it?" "Sir, their power output has increased by 400%. And climbing." Zorath leaned forward in his command chair. "That's impossible. A ship that size couldn't generate that much power without melting its own core. I'm also reading structural changes in their hull. The metal seems to be... moving, reconfiguring." Before Zorath could respond, his communication officer interrupted. "Sir, the human ship is hailing us. Put them on screen." Commander Vasquez appeared. She looked different than before. There was no fear in her eyes now. No uncertainty. She looked like a warrior preparing for battle. "Fleet Commander," she said, "I'm going to give you one chance. One chance to take your ships and leave this nebula. If you refuse, I will destroy your armada." For a moment, the bridge was silent. Then Zorath began to laugh. It was a deep, rumbling sound that echoed through the chamber. His officers joined in, their laughter filling the room. "You will destroy us," Zorath finally managed to say. "With what? Your science equipment? Your outdated engines? Human, you have no shields. You have no weapons. You're nothing but prey, pretending to be a predator." Vasquez smiled. It was a cold smile, the kind of smile that prey never gave. "We don't need shields," she said. "We never did." The transmission ended. Zorath's laughter died. He stared at the screen where the human had been, replaying her words in his mind. Something about her confidence disturbed him. Something about the way she had said those words, "sir." His tactical officer was waiting for orders. Zorath made his decision. Whatever the humans were planning, it didn't matter. His armada had enough firepower to destroy a small moon. One ship, no matter what tricks it had, could not stand against such overwhelming force. "All ships," he commanded, "open fire. Maximum firepower. Leave nothing but dust." Across the armada, weapons came online. Plasma cannons powered up. Missile tubes opened. Kinetic guns loaded their ammunition. Hundreds of fighter craft accelerated toward the human vessel, ready to tear it apart. On the Perseverance, Lieutenant Park watched his screens fill with incoming fire. "Commander, they're launching everything they have." Impact in 40 seconds. Vasquez didn't flinch. Okonkwo, is the absorption system ready? Ready and waiting, Commander. All hands brace for impact. The crew grabbed whatever they could. They had no idea what was about to happen. They only knew that their commander had asked them to trust her. The first plasma bolt struck the Perseverance's hull on the Eternal Dominion. Zorath watched with satisfaction as his weapons found their target. The human ship was engulfed in explosions. Plasma, missiles, and kinetic rounds pounded its hull from every direction. The vessel should have been vaporized in the first second. It wasn't. Instead, something impossible happened. The Perseverance's hull began to glow. Not the red glow of heated metal, but a bright blue glow that spread across the entire ship. The explosions continued to hit, but they seemed to be absorbed, swallowed by that strange blue light. What is happening? Zorath demanded. Why isn't it destroyed? His sensor officer was panicking. Sir, the human ship is converting our weapons fire into energy. Their power levels are increasing with every hit. They're using our own attacks to charge their systems. That's impossible. Sir, look. The Perseverance was changing. Hull plates that had seemed old and worn were sliding apart, revealing hidden compartments beneath. Weapon arrays extended from ports that hadn't existed moments before. The engines, which had barely produced enough thrust to maintain orbit, suddenly flared with blinding intensity. The old research ship was gone. In its place was something else entirely. Something that looked like it had been built for one purpose: destruction. On the bridge of the Perseverance, Vasquez watched the power readings climb higher and higher. Every shot the Krethfar fired was making her ship stronger. The heat sinks were working perfectly, converting enemy fire into fuel for their own weapons. Resonance cannons. At full charge, Park reported. Plasma array ready. Gravity wake generators standing by. Target the flagship. Dr. Chen was staring at her sensor screen with wide eyes. Alina, the flagship's shields are incredibly powerful. Our weapons might not. The resonance cannons don't care about shields. Okonkwo's voice came over the comm. They attack the molecular structure of the hull directly. Shields are designed to stop energy and mass. They're not designed to stop vibrations. Vasquez nodded. Fire. The Perseverance's main cannons erupted with power. Twin beams of invisible force shot across the space between the ships. They passed through the Eternal Dominion's shields as if they didn't exist. For 1 second, nothing seemed to happen. Then the massive battlecruiser began to shake. Small cracks appeared in its hull. The cracks spread, growing larger, connecting to each other. The ship's structure was tearing itself apart from the inside. Zorath barely had time to understand what was happening. One moment, he was standing on his bridge watching the impossible unfold. The next, his flagship was collapsing around him. The walls buckled. The floor cracked. Emergency alarms screamed. Abandoned ship. Someone was yelling. All hands abandoned. The Eternal Dominion came apart. It didn't explode. It crumbled, like a building made of sand hit by a wave. Thousands of tons of advanced warship reduced to drifting debris in seconds. The Armada froze. Every ship, every fighter, every crew member stared in horror at the space where their flagship had been. Fleet Commander Zorath, the undefeated conqueror of 17 worlds, was gone. On the Perseverance, the crew was equally stunned. They had won. One shot, and the enemy flagship was destroyed. But Vasquez knew it wasn't over. The Armada was momentarily shocked, but shock would soon turn to rage. They would attack with everything they had. They would want revenge. Good, Helm, she ordered. Engage engines. Full power. Take us through their formation. Through them, Commander. Through them, and activate the gravity wake. The Perseverance's engines roared to life. The ship accelerated forward, directly into the heart of the enemy Armada. Behind it, space itself seemed to twist and tear. The gravity wake spread outward like ripples in a pond. But these ripples were made of crushing force. The first destroyers caught in the wake crumpled like tin cans. Their hulls couldn't withstand the gravitational stress. Ships that tried to flee found themselves pulled backward into the zone of destruction. Fighters that got too close were simply crushed flat. The Perseverance carved a path of destruction through the enemy fleet, and the galaxy would never see humanity the same way again. The battle lasted 93 seconds. 93 seconds to destroy an armada that had conquered worlds. 93 seconds to change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. 93 seconds that would be studied by military academies for centuries to come. Commander Vasquez watched the final destroyer drift away. Its engines dead, its weapons destroyed, its crew scrambling for escape pods. All around the Perseverance, the wreckage of the Krethvar fleet floated in the purple clouds of the nebula. 12 battle cruisers reduced to debris. 47 destroyers disabled or destroyed. Hundreds of fighters crushed by gravitational forces they couldn't escape. And in the middle of it all, one old research ship that had shown its true face. Damage report, Vasquez ordered. Lieutenant Park checked his screens. His hands were shaking, but his voice was steady. Hull integrity at 94%. Minor stress fractures on decks 3 and 7. No casualties. All systems functioning normally. Dr. Chen was crying. She didn't even seem to realize it. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she stared at the destruction outside. We did it. We actually did it. Okonkwo's voice came over the comm system. Commander, I'm reading multiple distress signals from Krethvar escape pods. Thousands of survivors. What are your orders? Vasquez took a deep breath. This was the moment that would define humanity's future. They had won the battle. Now they had to decide what kind of victory it would be. Rescue operations, she said. Launch all shuttles. Pick up survivors. Provide medical care to the wounded. Commander? Park turned to look at her. After what they tried to do to us? Especially after what they tried to do to us. Vasquez stood up from her command chair. We're not like them, Lieutenant. We don't slaughter helpless enemies. We don't murder survivors. That's not who humanity is. That's not who we will ever be. The crew exchanged looks. Some seemed uncertain. Others nodded slowly, understanding what their commander was saying. We won this battle with weapons, Vasquez continued, but we'll win the peace with mercy. When those survivors return home, they won't just tell stories about how powerful our ship was. They'll tell stories about how we saved their lives when we didn't have to. That's a weapon more powerful than any cannon. The rescue operations began. Shuttles launched from the Perseverance, moving through the debris field, collecting escape pods and injured crew members. The Krethvar survivors were confused at first. They expected to be killed or tortured. Instead, they were given food, water, and medical treatment. One of the survivors was a young Krethvar officer named Tarek. He had served on one of the destroyers, and he had watched his ship collapse around him when the gravity wake passed through it. He had lost friends. He had lost his commander. He had expected to lose his life. Instead, human medic was treating the burns on his arms, speaking softly in the Krethvar language. Why? Tarek asked. Why are you helping us? We tried to destroy you, the medic. A young woman named Maria Santos looked up at him, because that's what humans do. We help people who need help, even our enemies. But we would have killed all of you. Our fleet commander wanted to take your ship as a trophy. I know. Maria applied a healing gel to his burns. But you're not trying to kill us now. You're injured and scared and far from home. That makes you someone who needs help, not someone who needs more pain. Tarek stared at her for a long moment. In all his years of military service, he had never encountered anything like this. The Krethvar code was simple. Destroy your enemies completely. Show no mercy. Take everything you could. That was how empires were built. But maybe, he thought, that wasn't the only way. While the rescue operations continued, Vasquez returned to her ready room. She had a message to compose. Not to Earth, the long-range communications were still being repaired after the Krethvar jamming. No, this message was for someone much closer. She activated the secure channel. A moment later, a face appeared on her screen. It was a human face. An old man with tired eyes and a guilty expression. Director Walsh Vasquez said coldly, "I thought I might hear from you." The director of Colonial Intelligence shifted uncomfortably. "Commander Vasquez, I see you survived. No thanks to you." Vasquez leaned forward. "The Krethver knew exactly what we discovered. They knew where we were and when we would be vulnerable. Someone told them. Someone in our own government?" Walsh was silent for a long moment. Then he sighed. "It wasn't supposed to happen this way. The plan was for the Krethvar to capture your ship and data. We would then use that incident to justify increased military spending. Public support for a larger fleet? It was supposed to be a political victory. Sold us out. 47 people, traded for political games. The Krethvar assured us they would take prisoners, not kill anyone. You would have been returned in a prisoner exchange within months." Vasquez felt her anger rising, but she kept her voice controlled. "You didn't know about the ship's real capabilities, did you? You thought we were actually defenseless." Walsh's eyes widened slightly. That told Vasquez everything she needed to know. The sleeper ships. You know about Project Sleeper, but you didn't know the Perseverance was one of them. That information was lost decades ago. After the war, records were destroyed to protect the secret. We knew the ships existed, but not which ones they were. So you gambled with our lives. Not knowing you were gambling with one of humanity's greatest weapons. Walsh had no response to that. "Here's what's going to happen," Vasquez continued. "I'm going to return to Earth with my crew, my data, and a full report of what happened here. That report will include everything, including your involvement. You can run if you want. You can hide. But eventually, the truth will come out. It always does." She ended the transmission before Walsh could respond. On the bridge, Lieutenant Park was coordinating the last of the rescue operations. Over 3,000 Krethver survivors had been collected. The Perseverance's cargo bays had been converted into temporary holding areas, with medical stations set up throughout. Commander Park said as Vasquez returned, "All survivors are aboard. We've provided them with navigation data for the nearest neutral station and enough supplies to reach it." "Good. Prepare to release them in their own shuttles." Dr. Chen approached. "Alina, I've been going over the data we collected. The gravitational anomalies in this nebula, they're not natural. Someone created them. Someone built a network of gravity wells that could revolutionize space travel. Who? I don't know. The technology is unlike anything in our databases. It could be ancient, built by a species that died out millions of years ago. Or it could be from someone we've never encountered." Chen's eyes were bright with scientific excitement. This discovery could change everything. Faster than light travel that doesn't require traditional methods. We could cross the galaxy in days instead of months. Vasquez nodded slowly. That explained why the Krethver had been so desperate to get the data. That explained why someone in humanity's own government had been willing to betray them. The stakes were higher than anyone had imagined. "Need to get this information back to Earth," she said. "But not to the intelligence services. Not to the politicians. We need to find someone we can trust." "Who?" Before Vasquez could answer, the sensor alarm chimed. Park checked his readings and went pale. "Commander, we have incoming ships." "Lots of them. Krethver reinforcements." "No." Park looked up, his expression confused. "The signatures don't match anything in our database. They're unknown." On the main screen, shapes began to emerge from the nebulous clouds. Ships, but unlike any ships they had ever seen. They moved with impossible grace, their hulls shimmering with strange light. The Perseverance had won one battle. But it seemed the universe wasn't finished with them yet. The unknown ships numbered in the dozens. They floated in the nebula like ghosts, their hulls made of some material that seemed to shift between solid and transparent. No weapons were visible. No engine signatures detected. They simply existed, watching the Perseverance with what felt like ancient curiosity. "Any response to our hails?" Vasquez asked. Lieutenant Park shook his head. "Nothing, Commander. But they're not making any hostile moves either. They're just... observing." The bridge crew waited in tense silence. After surviving the Krethvar Armada, the last thing they needed was another fight. But these ships were different. Something about them felt wrong. Or perhaps not wrong, just old. Impossibly old. Then, without warning, a voice filled the bridge. It didn't come through the communication systems. It seemed to come from everywhere at once, speaking directly into their minds. We have watched. We have waited. Now we have seen. Vasquez rose from her chair. Who are you? We are the architects. We built the gates you discovered. We seeded them across this galaxy 1,000,000 years before your species took its first breath. Dr. Chen grabbed Vasquez's arm. The gravitational anomalies. They didn't just find them, they created them, the voice continued. We created the gates for a purpose. To find species worthy of the stars? Species that could fight for survival, but choose mercy after victory. Species that could wield great power without becoming corrupt. You've been testing us? Vasquez asked. We have been testing everyone. For 1,000,000 years, we have watched civilizations rise and fall. We have seen empires that conquered through cruelty. We have seen species that achieved peace through weakness. Neither survived. Neither deserved to. The unknown ships began to move. They circled the Perseverance slowly, their strange hulls reflecting the purple light of the nebula. It felt like being examined by something vast and unknowable. Your species is young, fragile. You have made many mistakes. But today, you showed us something remarkable. You built weapons of terrible power, then hid them. You used those weapons only when survival demanded it. And when you won, you showed mercy to those who would have destroyed you. The crew exchanged uncertain glances. Were they being praised? Judged both? The gates are now open to you. All of them. Every corner of this galaxy can be reached in moments. This is our gift to humanity. Use it wisely. Use it with the same balance of strength and compassion you showed today. Vasquez stepped forward. Wait, why us? There are older species, more advanced civilizations. Why give this gift to humanity? There was a pause. When the voice spoke again, it seemed almost amused. Because older does not mean wiser. Because advanced does not mean worthy. We have watched the Krethvar for 10,000 years. They have conquered much, but learned nothing. They believe might makes right. They believe mercy is weakness. They will never change. But humanity, you have something different. You remember your past. You learn from your mistakes. You build weapons of mass destruction, then choose not to use them. You defeat your enemies, then help them survive. This contradiction is your greatest strength. The ships began to pull away, drifting back into the nebulous clouds. One final gift. The one who betrayed you, the one called Walshwill, faced justice. We have sent your evidence to those who can use it. The corruption in your government will be exposed. This is not interference in your affairs. This is simply ensuring that the species we have chosen has a fair chance to prove itself. The voice faded. One by one, the unknown ships vanished into the nebula, disappearing as mysteriously as they had appeared. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Dr. Chen let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Did that just happen? Did ancient aliens just give us the keys to the galaxy? It seems that way, Vasquez said slowly. She sat back in her command chair, trying to process everything that had occurred. In one day, they had discovered a breakthrough in space travel. Survived an ambush by an enemy armada, learned they were flying a hidden warship. Destroyed that armada, exposed a government conspiracy, and met a species that had been watching the galaxy for 1,000,000 years. It was a lot for a Tuesday. What do we do now? Park asked. We go home. Vasquez smiled. We tell Earth what happened. All of it. And then we prepare for whatever comes next. The Perseverance turned toward human space. Its engines, those incredible hidden engines, pushed the old ship forward. Behind them, the wreckage of the Krethvar Armada drifted in silence. 6 months later, Commander Elena Vasquez stood before the United Earth Council. The chamber was packed with representatives from every human colony, every major government, every important institution. They had all come to hear the full story of what happened in the Hirian Nebula. Director Walsh was not among them. He had been arrested 3 months earlier, along with 7 other officials who had participated in the conspiracy. The evidence provided by the mysterious architects had been undeniable. In conclusion, Vasquez said, the gates built by the architects are now accessible to humanity. Our scientists have confirmed that travel times across the galaxy can be reduced from months to hours. This changes everything. The chamber erupted in murmuring voices. Vasquez waited for silence before continuing. But we must be careful. The architects chose us because of who we are, not because of how powerful we could become. They saw a species that builds weapons but prefers not to use them. A species that defeats its enemies but does not destroy them. A species that remembers its history and tries to learn from its mistakes. She looked around the chamber. Meeting the eyes of leaders from across human civilization, if we use these gates to become conquerors, we will become no different from the Krethver. We will have failed the test that was given to us. But if we use them to explore, to learn, to make connections with other species based on mutual respect, then we will prove that the architects were right too. Choose us. The applause that followed was not the triumphant roar of a species celebrating a military victory. It was something quieter, more thoughtful. The applause of people who understood that they had been given a great responsibility. It's not just a great gift. 2 years later, the first human ships passed through the architect gates. They traveled farther than any human had gone before, making contact with dozens of species, establishing trade routes and alliances that would have taken centuries to build through. Traditional travel. The Krethver Empire, weakened by their devastating loss in the Hirian Nebula, eventually sent ambassadors requesting peace talks. The negotiations were long and difficult, but they succeeded. Not because humanity threatened them, but because the Krethvar survivors, the ones the Perseverance had rescued, told stories about the humans who had shown them mercy. Those stories spread. Species across the galaxy heard about the old research ship that defeated an Armada, then stopped to save its enemies. They heard about the humans who built terrible weapons, but used them only to defend themselves. They heard about a species that was strong enough to destroy but wise enough to heal, and whenever a human ship appeared in a new star system, the locals no longer saw it as a threat. They saw it as a potential friend. Because they had heard the story of the Perseverance, Commander Vasquez eventually retired from active service. She spent her later years writing a book about her experiences, hoping to pass on the lessons she had learned. The book ended with a simple message. Humanity will always face enemies. We will always need to defend ourselves. But let us never forget that our greatest strength is not our weapons. It is our ability to see beyond the battle, beyond the victory, beyond the immediate conflict. Our greatest strength is our capacity for mercy, for growth, for change. The day we lose that is the day we become unworthy of the stars. The book became required reading at every military academy on Earth, and somewhere in the void between galaxies, the architects watched. They had seen countless species fail the tests they had given. They had watched civilizations destroy themselves with the power they were offered. But humanity was different. Humanity remembered, and the architects smiled.